All right, so from lesson 2.1, we know that matter can change into other stuff. And specifically, the most interesting thing is that matter can change into other types of matter through chemical changes. Now, when something goes through chemical changes, sometimes it releases energy. So, in this lesson, we're going to focus on the types of energy that matter can become. Right, so the title of the notes is located here on the slide and the previous slide, and the key ideas for the video notes. If you have not written them already, go ahead and pause and make sure you write this down before moving on with the video. Okay, so in lesson 2.1, we talked about chemical or physical changes, right? Matter can basically change. And specifically, we care about matter changing into new matter because when matter changes into new matter, energy can be released or absorbed, right? So, in all three of these cases, energy is being released. And I know this because you can kind of feel the heat off of this one and this one. This one is hard to tell, but when I demo this, and maybe when we return from distance learning and we do this experiment, you can feel the heat coming off of the foam bubbles as well. Right. So because matter can change into different things and release energy, we first need to define what is energy. So, the formal definition of energy is that energy is the ability to do work or cause change. And by doing work, I essentially mean making something move, right? So anytime you see something moving, it requires energy of some sort in order to move it, whether that be someone is pushing someone or something, or that there is an engine causing it to move, right? It has to have energy. And by cause change, I mean like it's changing something into something else, right? It's creating a reaction where you see an explosion, like in the other gifts in the previous slide, or maybe there's a color or temperature change, right? So it can come with all of these or just some of these. In general, there are three main types of energy and one that we're going to focus on in chemistry. The other two you'll talk more about in physics. So, the first type of energy, you'll focus more on this in physics, is called kinetic energy. So, kinetic energy is basically energy that creates movement. So, if someone was pushing their dogs earlier on a swing and they're still swinging, they created kinetic energy because you can see the dogs moving, right? You can see this plane not doing so great on its liftoff, but it's still happening and it's still moving. So any energy that shows or demonstrates something moving or movements, we call kinetic energy. Kinetic meaning moving. So that's the first type of energy. So in the second type of energy, it's called potential energy. So potential meaning it has the energy to move something, but it's not going to do it just yet. You have to do something with it first. So with potential energy, it has energy inside it, but it's not doing anything. So potential energy formally is energy stored in an object, and you can use the energy stored in something in order to move something later. So let me give you a couple of examples of that. So any type of fuel that you use would be considered energy. So if you're feeling super sleepy and you drink a Monster energy drink, right, you feel more energized. So there is energy in the form of liquid sugar and B vitamins and all these other things that are providing you energy once you drink it. Another common example is a battery, right? A battery by itself doesn't do anything unless you link it, right, with a series of magnets or with wires in order to move those electrons to create energy, right? So if you hook up a battery to a whole bunch of magnets, you can cause a wire to spin. You can easily see that it's moving something once you attach it to a certain number of things, right? You can think about a, a gas tank in a car or like jet engine fuel. Any of those things would be considered potential energy. Another example of potential energy is if you have something that's sitting high up, right? So if I have a bowling ball on the very top shelf of my locker and it has the potential to fall down and hurt me or catapult someone somewhere, it has the potential to move something or hurt something. So, therefore, anything high up or like pulled back also has stored energy, right? You can think about an archer with a bow. So, if you're pulling the bow back, the bow and arrow is not moving, but once the archer lets go of the arrow, right, there's all that energy, much like in a spring where it's being released, right? So potential energy is like if somebody lets go, will something happen? Or if it's like a battery or something stored, can it cause something to happen in the future? That is potential energy. So the third type of energy is the one we're going to focus on in chemistry. And this is related to potential energy. It's a type of potential energy called chemical potential potential energy. Chemical potential energy. So chemical potential energy is energy stored in atoms and molecules and chemical bonds that make up matter. So when you drink a monster, right, you're drinking all of those molecules that break up into molecules that gets created into ATP, which is a molecule that gives you energy. If I zoom inside your cells, you'll see this happening. This is happening inside of you right now. So this is within the cytoplasm. We have some molecules that are transporting some lysosomes, right, within your cell. So all of that requires energy. And if you could zoom in into these chemicals, right? So here's this three O's or oxygens that were stuck together, and then they connected to make OCl, and now I have two O's or an oxygen molecule. And then here I have dinitrogen gas forming. So anytime an atom or something connects and then reconnects with something else, there's energy that's being generated or created, right? The easiest way to figure out whether something has chemical potential energy or not is if that molecule or chemical changes to something else, right? So if you take glycogen and it turns into glucose, you hear that the names sound different. There are two different chemicals, so it changed from one thing to another. That's an easy way to tell that you're looking at chemical potential energy when you hear the names of something change into something else.